Hello and welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. My name is Natalie Himmelrich. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is completely self-funded, produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. Consider making a small donation to support the podcast. Go to bit.ly/support, capital G, capital T, and podcast. I repeat, bit.ly/supportgt podcast. Thank you so much. And for more information, please visit Natalie's website, join the podcast Instagram page, and subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates on future episodes. Welcome to this special series on the many faces of trauma. In each episode, we'll explore one trauma type in a clear, gentle way, what it is, how it can show up in daily life, and one small step that can help your nervous system feel a little safer. Nothing here is meant to diagnose you, and you're always invited to take what fits and leave the rest. And because this is trauma work, we'll end every episode with a short grounding practice you can do anywhere. Today we're talking about secondary and vicarious trauma, how helpers, professionals, and close supporters can be impacted by other people's trauma. This episode is general and non-graphic. If you notice yourself tightening, feeling heavy, or going numb, you can pause and return later. If you support someone who has been through trauma, whether you're a therapist, teacher, nurse, doctor, coach, social worker, first responder, or simply a partner, parent, sibling, or friend, your nervous system is not a neutral observer. Humans are wired for empathy. We co-regulate and we resonate. And that means that being close to trauma can shape you, even when you're not the one who experienced the original event. This episode is here to normalize that reality, reduce shame, and offer a few practical tools that protect your nervous system without hardening your heart. Because self-care isn't just a lifestyle suggestion for helpers. It's part of ethical, sustainable support. Let's have a look at the definitions of secondary trauma versus vicarious trauma. Secondary traumatic stress is when you develop trauma-like stress responses from exposure to someone else's trauma, often through hearing details, witnessing distress, or being involved in crisis response. It can look like intrusive thoughts or images. You might feel on edge or jumpy, experience sleep disruption, emotional flooding, or even avoidance or a numbness. Vicarious trauma is more about how repeated exposure can slowly change your inner world, your beliefs and expectations about safety, trust, power, and meaning. It can sound like the world is dangerous, people can't be trusted, nothing I do is enough, I can't switch off. These two experiences can overlap. And sometimes people also use the term compassion fatigue, which often describes the combination of exhaustion and emotional depletion and a reduced capacity to stay open. And I want to say this clearly here. If this is you, it doesn't mean you're not cut out for helping. It simply means you're human. Imagine a partner supporting someone who has panic after a traumatic event. At first, they're steady, they listen, they reassure, they help create safety. But over time, they start waking up tense, anticipating the next panic episode. They avoid certain places because they don't want to trigger their loved one. They feel guilty when they need space, and they find themselves scanning the other person's face, mood, tone constantly. Eventually they realize, I'm living in the trauma field too. That's secondary stress. It's your nervous system adapting to someone else's threat landscape. From a polyvagal-informed perspective, this makes sense. Our nervous systems are socially wired. So we read facial expressions, tone of voice, breathing patterns, posture, the sense of urgency. And so when someone else in your vicinity is in fight, flight, or shutdown, your nervous system can begin to mirror it. It's like contagious. So, and this happens especially if you feel responsible, there's high emotion, or there's an ongoing unpredictability. And this is why helpers often report that they're feeling activated before sessions. They feel like they're carrying a sense of heaviness after the session. They might get irritable with loved ones or going numb as a protective response. And this is not failure, this is resonance. And so the goal is not to become cold. It's to build flexibility and to be able to be present without absorbing it. So here are some of the common markers of secondary and vicarious trauma. In the body, it can feel like fatigue, headaches, tension, might be experience sleep disruption, have a heightened startled response, or like this sense of wired tired. The mind can be flooded with intrusive thoughts, cynicism, hopelessness, or finding it difficult to concentrate, or like a sense of feeling full and saturated in the mind. In the emotional landscape, it can show up as irritability, emotional numbing, like a grief that isn't yours but it feels real, or a guilt for needing distance. Behaviors that can show up are overworking or being over-responsible. On the other hand, maybe an avoidance of certain clients, topics, or places. In the private space, maybe even withdrawing from friends and family, or doom scrolling as a stuck way of trying to solve reality. In the meaning making, there are sentences additional to the ones I said before or thoughts that could be like, I can't switch off, I'm not doing enough, it never ends. Again, remember these are patterns and not diagnosis. In the following, I'm going to go through sort of 5 protective support ways that can work across roles. So it's both for professional and loved ones. So use whatever works for you. The first one is to have clarity in respect to boundaries. Because boundaries are not rejection, they are nervous system care. A couple of examples here. Have clear time boundaries. Be clear of when you start and when you stop. Have topic boundaries for yourself. What can you hold today and what not? And also be clear about your role boundaries. Be specific about what is yours to carry versus what is theirs. The second one is to make transitions intentional. The nervous system needs bookends. So at the beginning or before supporting someone, it could be taking a conscious breath or using a phrase or a brief orientation cue. And after supporting space or event, use something to reset. For example, with a movement or taking some water, using some music or a short walk. The third one is share your load, because secondary trauma grows in isolation. As professionals, we are therefore ethically responsible to look after ourselves by taking supervision, peer support, and debriefing after events. On a personal level, this could be an honest conversation to prevent yourself from saturation with someone else than the person affected. The fourth one is give yourself permission to be affected without collapsing. You can't let it touch you without letting it consume you. And a helpful sentence for that maybe, this matters to me and I can still return to myself. And the fifth one, from a polyvagal perspective, very important, is to restore the ventral pathway. As you know, the ventral pathway is there for your safety and connection. This is the state where you feel safe and connected. So here are a couple of different ways to restore that or to help restore it. It can be restored through connecting with nature, connecting with someone, a safe person, which has a warm voice, sharing some laughter, maybe some rhythmic movement. Music as well helps, creativity, and always enough sleep and healthy nutrition. These aren't luxuries. They're really nervous system interventions. And for partners or support people specifically, remember you can be loving and still say, I'm here and I also need a break. Or let's get additional support. Another one is, I can support you, but I can't be your only support. For our grounding practice today, I use something you can do after every session or a conversation or caregiving, like a reset. I call it return to self reset. Step 1, shake out. Gently shake out your hands, then your arms, then your shoulders. Doesn't have to be an intense shake, just small and subtle. This helps discharge empathic load. Step 2, say quietly to yourself, and you'll fill in the gaps. My name is. I'm here in. This kind of orientation helps the system separate their story from my now. Step 3 is to use a containment gesture. I'm going to suggest one. You may use another one where you feel held. The one that I love is to place one hand on your chest and one on your belly, and then feel the boundary of your own body. Step number 4, say this one sentence to yourself. I can care without caring. And then step 5, exhale. Take longer exhales than you inhale, once or twice. And then come back to here and now. Now, if you'd like support as you move through this series, check my website for the free resources offered for both those affected by grief, loss and trauma, and those supporting them. In the next episode, we'll step into a more clinical but still accessible topic, which is complex trauma and complex PTSD, and how long-term exposure can shape identity, relationships, and the body. Until then, stay safe. Thanks for listening to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. If you'd like to be updated on future episodes, please subscribe to my newsletter on nataliehimmelrich.com. If you need grief support, please contact me for a 30 minutes free discovery session. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. To support this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember to keep breathing. I promise it will get easier.